People on TikTok told me to pull my eyes up with my fingers. I tried it for a week. Here's the surgical, social, and sad truth. So I spent 7 days tugging at the outer corners of my eyes like I was trying to manually adjust my face's firmware. Every morning, every night, sometimes during Zoom calls when I thought no one was looking. And you know what changed? Nothing. Except now I flinch every time I see my own reflection. Because I've trained myself to associate my face with a weird DIY ritual that probably made me look unhinged to my roommate. But let's back up. If you've been anywhere near the looks maxing side of the internet lately, you've heard the term Canthal tilt. It's the angle between the inner corner of your eye and the outer corner. Positive tilt means the outer corner sits higher than the inner one. Negative tilt means it droops. Neutral is, well, neutral. And according to a very loud corner of TikTok and Reddit, positive Canthal tilt is the difference between looking like a predator and looking like prey, which is insane, but also kind of not, because we've turned faces into spreadsheets now. There are literally forums where people measure this stuff with protractors and argue about whether you're supposed to draw the line from the white of your eye or include the actual inner corner where your tear duct lives. And depending on which method you pick, your tilt changes. So you can have a positive tilt in one screenshot and a negative tilt in another, and both are technically correct, which means neither matters as much as you think. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what Canthal tilt actually is, before we talk about why everyone's measuring it wrong. Canthal tilt is just anatomy. It's the angle formed by an imaginary line connecting your medial canthus, that's the inner corner, near your nose, and your lateral canthus, the outer corner. If the outer corner is higher, you've got a positive tilt. If it's lower, negative. If they're level, neutral. That's it. It's not a moral judgment. It's not a destiny. It's just the shape your eye socket and soft tissue decided to make. But here's where it gets messy. The looks maxing forums can't agree on how to measure it. Some people say you measure from the white to white, ignoring the inner corner entirely. Others say you include the full medial canthus. Others say it depends on your orbital bone convexity, which is a fancy way of saying the shape of your eye socket changes how the tilt looks. And then there's head tilt. If you tilt your head even slightly, your Canthal tilt changes in photos. So people post selfies asking for ratings, and half the replies are just, "Bro, you're tilting your head, retake it." I tried to measure mine. I used my phone camera, a protractor app, and 3 different angles. I got 3 different results. In one photo, I had a positive tilt. In another, I looked neutral. In the third, I looked like I was melting. And that's when I realized most of this is just lighting, expression, and whether or not you're squinting. But the internet doesn't care about that. The internet wants hunter eyes. Hunter eyes. If you've been in the looks maxing ecosystem for more than 10 minutes, you know this term. It's the holy grail. Positive Canthal tilt, low set brows, minimal upper eyelid exposure, hooded lids, and a kind of intense, half squinting look that's supposed to signal dominance or masculinity, or whatever. It's called hunter eyes because it's supposed to look predatory, like you're tracking prey, which is a deeply weird thing to want your face to communicate in a Starbucks, but here we are. The term comes from old school looks maxing forums and got turbocharged by TikTok. Now there are filters that give you hunter eyes. There are celebrity comparison videos. There are breakdowns of which actors have them and which don't, as if that explains their entire career. And it's always part of a checklist. Hunter eyes, hollow cheeks, defined jaw, forward maxilla, neutral canthal tilt. Wait, I thought we wanted positive? You see the problem. It's a moving target. And the target is almost always a photo of someone with professional lighting, good bone structure, and probably some cosmetic work, but we're supposed to believe it's all genetics and mewing. Here's the thing. Most of the hunter eyes you see online are a combination of genetics, grooming, lighting, squinting, and surgery. Not one magic feature. Not canthal tilt alone. It's a vibe. And vibes don't translate to protractor apps. But people want a formula, so TikTok gave them one. Eye-pulling exercises, facial massages, bone-smashing adjacent theories about remodeling your orbital rim with pressure. And my personal favorite, the one I fell for, pulling the outer corners of your eyes upward for several minutes a day to somehow train your soft tissue into a new position. I did it for a week. Nothing happened. My eyes did not migrate. My canthal tilt did not improve. I just looked like someone who was very concerned about their eyes, which is not the same as having good eyes. And according to actual cosmetic surgeons, board certified ones who've done this for decades, there's zero evidence that pulling on your eyelids does anything except irritate your skin. Your canthal tilt is determined by bone structure and soft tissue attachment. You can't massage it into a new shape. You can't exercise it. You can't mew your way into hunter eyes, even though some forums will try to convince you that tongue posture affects your orbital bones. It doesn't, so what actually works? If we're talking soft maxing, non-surgical stuff, here's the real ROI. Eyebrow grooming, reducing under-eye puffiness. With sleep, hydration, and maybe caffeine serums. Skincare around the eyes so you don't look tired. Learning how to squint naturally in photos, because that does change the appearance of your eye shape and tilt. And understanding lighting. Seriously, good. Lighting from slightly above makes everyone's eyes look better. That's it. That's the list. Everything else is cope. But let's say you're not satisfied. Let's say you want to actually change your canthal tilt. That's surgery, canthoplasty or canthopexy. Canthoplasty repositions the outer corner of your eye. Canthopexy tightens the lower eyelid. Both are real procedures. Both are done by oculoplastic surgeons, and both come with real risks. Scarring, asymmetry, overcorrection, where your eyes end up looking pulled or unnatural. Infection, dry eyes, long recovery, and cost thousands of dollars. And even if it goes well, you're changing one feature on your face, which might not integrate with the rest of your features the way you imagined. I've seen before and afters where the tilt improved, but the person looks less like themselves. And that's the trade-off no one talks about. Surgery is for edge cases. If you have severe asymmetry, if you have a functional issue, like ectropion, where your lower lid sags away from your eye, if you've consulted with multiple surgeons and they all agree it's a reasonable intervention. But if you're considering surgery because a TikTok filter made you feel bad, pause. Talk to 3 surgeons, then talk to a therapist. I'm not joking. Because here's what I learned from my week of eye pulling and my month of reading canthal tilt threads. This isn't really about eyes, it's about control. It's about the fantasy that if you just fix this one thing, everything else clicks into place. Your dating life, your confidence, the way people look at you. And canthal tilt is just specific enough and measurable enough that it feels like a real target. But it's not. Because attractiveness is context. It's movement. It's expression. It's the way you talk and hold yourself and whether you seem comfortable in your own skin. And none of that shows up in a protractor measurement. The looks maxing forums will tell you that's cope. That aesthetics are objective and measurable, and that canthal tilt is a proven factor in attractiveness studies. And sure, there's some truth there. Symmetry and certain proportions do correlate with perceived attractiveness in controlled studies. But those studies also show that context, familiarity, and personality override those factors in real-world attraction. And they definitely don't account for the fact that most people aren't walking around with protractors rating your canthal tilt. They're just seeing your whole face, your whole vibe, and if you're spending hours measuring your eye tilt and pulling on your eyelids, you're not working on your vibe. You're working on a feature that might matter 0% in the actual interactions that determine your life. I'm not saying canthal tilt doesn't exist. It does. I'm not saying it has zero impact on how people perceive faces. It probably has some. But I am saying that if you're obsessing over it, you've fallen into the trap. The trap is thinking that attractiveness is a checklist. That if you just optimize enough features, you unlock some new tier of existence. And the truth is, most people who do that just end up looking uncanny or spending money they don't have on procedures they regret. The other trap is body dysmorphia, and this is where it gets dark. Because looks maxing communities, especially the ones that focus on measurement and ranking and mogging, can amplify the exact kind of obsessive self-scrutiny that leads to dysmorphia. You start seeing flaws that no one else sees. You start thinking that a millimeter of canthal tilt is the reason you're not where you want to be in life. And it's not. It's never just one feature. And if you fix that feature, you'll find another one. Because the problem isn't your face, it's the framework. I spent a week staring at my eyes in the mirror. I learned nothing about my face and everything about my brain. I learned that I'm willing to believe in magic if it's packaged as optimization. I learned that I'd rather have a formula than accept uncertainty. And I learned that the internet is really, really good at selling you problems you didn't know you had. So here's the hierarchy. If you want to do something about your eyes, start with the stuff that actually works. Sleep, hydration, skincare, eyebrow grooming, learn to take better photos, understand lighting. If you're still unhappy after that, and it's a real functional or aesthetic issue, consult a surgeon, a real one, not a forum, not a TikTok comment section. And if you're thinking about surgery because you measured your canthal tilt with a protractor app and got a number you didn't like, please, for the love of everything, do not do that. Canthal tilt is real. Hunter eyes are real. But they're not the cheat code. They're just one variable in a system so complex that trying to optimize it with a checklist is like trying to win a conversation by memorizing a script. It doesn't work. People can tell. Anyway, I'm gonna go outside and remind myself what sunlight looks like. You coming?